Hey there, it's author and attorney Kelly O'Connell from Knockout Radio. Good day. I enjoy discussing politics, sports, travel, music, and a lot of other stuff. Today's show is about COVID-2, son of virus. I'm going to have some for you. I'm going to have some weird news after this. I found that's a little bit better to keep the pace of the show. Son of COVID, the virus, where reality is being literally shoved down your throat hourly, every day. Now, how can Dems blame others for COVID outbreak after importing 500,000 infected? And the answer to that is obviously they can't. So I had a friend who asked me if I would consider doing an article on the virus and getting people to take the vaccine. And first I said no, because I didn't want to get in the middle of it. And then I realized that I did have a specific opinion, which I'm going to share with you. But in general, just to sum it up, I don't think there's anything wrong with vaccines, and I don't think you would find 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000 that had a problem with vaccines. I think the problem is people don't trust the government who created the vaccine because of the way they've been treated during the pandemic. And but let me get into it right here. An outbreak opportunity, guys. It's in the midst of the second phase of the virus of COVID that our boastfully leftist U.S. government is repurposing COVID for the next level of control. Now, this is how I see it. I think this government's obviously socialist in its thinking. And they're fighting and trying to use everything that they can to make more people dependent on the government. And one way they do that is by continuing to pay people even after the shutdowns are turned off. And so that keeps people from going to their jobs, and so it then associates their pay with the government, which is what the government wants in this case. And it's using a lot of other things to gain control of people, gain their trust, present itself in the midst of a crisis as the only friend that you have, the only friend that you need. Now, as we begin to talk about Delta, mask rules are returning. They're threatening shutdowns again. Vaccine mandates are being threatened, and passports, virus passports, vaccine passports, are going to be demanded, and people are rolling their eyes. Well, think about this. Observe the preposterously unsuited Joe Biden sinking in polls while desperately grasping at straws, flailing to save an oozing, gangrenous presidency. Disgusting. He's terrible. His failure was eminently predictable because those of us who were watching knew that he was already mentally unsound when he got into the office. And of course, the American populace, the large number of people that you and I know, not this 10% of people that are on the far left, they're outraged. We're outraged at the COVID circus as it begins its new season. Now, it's starting to feel like we're going to go through all this stuff again, and we already know that it was ineffective, that it didn't work, that it caused more problems than it solved. $1 trillion, $1.1 trillion a month in lost revenue for America, and it didn't save people. We know for a fact that shutdowns by themselves are not effective. Also, we know these masks, it was said by Dr. Fauci, are not effective outside of a hospital experience, outside of a hospital setting. Now, of course, you can't trust anything Fauci says because he said everything on both sides of the aisle. But it's a madhouse. It's absolutely insane. Democrats demand even children now wear masks with an almost non-existent infection rate for them. Crazy Nancy Pelosi threatens jail for maskless House members, creating a truly pathological Doctor Strangelove effect while flooding America with 500,000 infected illegals. Remember when she went down to the border like 15 years ago, whatever it was, and put her arms up in the air and started sweeping them backwards and saying, "Come, Americans, come." That's her idea still today. These invaders that are coming over the border, about 2 million of them so far this year, are unvaccinated and can't be tracked because they don't have paperwork. Yet Biden secretly flies them across America to drop them off in unaware cities in every state. The schizophrenic, cognitively dissonant policy is the cause of our current spike in infections. Now, cognitive dissonance is when you have two ideas that are in conflict in your mind, like being a gay priest, you know what I mean? As Charlton Heston bellowed in Planet of the Apes, it's a madhouse, a madhouse. Now, Dr. Faustus Fauci, after almost 2 years of widespread ignorance, misinformation, and politicization of COVID, has a weary and snake-bit public preparing a counterassault and very upset with him and the government. And so Biden is threatening federal law. They're going to bring in the federal law and force you to take the vaccine. They're going to force federal employees to take the vaccine. They're going to put up COVID vaccine lists to get on a plane, to get on a boat. So like Dr. Fauci, Dr. Faustus before him actually, Dr. Fauci sold his soul to Satan for power, riches, and glory. Dr. Faustus was written by Christopher Marlowe, one of the most brilliant playwrights in British history, and it's about a very eminent, very brilliant doctor who decided he wanted more, and he sold his soul to the devil. And that's exactly what this little Fauci has done. He's exposed as equivocating or changing his position over and over again, and lying, trying to hide funding for the Wuhan virus laboratory. And he's now trying to get people used to the idea that there's going to be more shutdowns, and people don't want it. And you saw how Rand Paul confronted him and said, shutdowns don't work. Where are you going with all this? And Fauci said he was lying. Rand Paul said that Fauci was lying, and I would bet my life savings that Rand Paul is the one who's telling the truth. So how did we get here, folks? You know what it's from? Sociopathic leaders. We hire leaders. We think about that. We hire these people and they lord it over us. We're hiring them. We're electing them, but it's a hiring process. And they are people who are not interested in the average individual American. That what they're interested in is their theories, their special beliefs, their socialism, their Marxism or whatever, global warming, whatever you want to call it, environmentalism. And they're interested in power so they can force us to follow what they believe. That's why these people are bad leaders. A generation of entrepreneurs has been bankrupted by them, by faux shutdowns. You know, the science was not showing that it was established that we needed the shutdowns, and yet they did it all across the country, especially in places like California, where Newsom is underwater. He's going to get removed, and it's going to be a black governor over there, Larry Elder, who's a brilliant attorney. And you've got all of these sociopaths, even psychopaths like Biden, Fauci, Cuomo, Newsom, Whitmer, and Pelosi. Think about how diabolical Cuomo is, molesting all those women, then pretending like he's God. He also killed 20,000 seniors in these retirement homes, but nobody's pointing that out right now. They're worried about him grabbing some girl's butt. Now, I will say this. As with any disease, it's likely vaccine levels must increase to vanquish our foe, but it is destroyed the government's credibility when they demand vaccines and shutdowns, and led by these terrible, terrible human beings like Nancy Pelosi. She's got to be one of the worst people on the face of the earth. She's allowed her own city to get destroyed in her lust for power. So I describe Americans right now as being unvaccinated, some of them, and unconvinced. Our unvaccinated remnant simply proves that the government has misplayed its hand and grabbed at power too quickly, used too many lies, made up science, and now is preaching to us that we need to get in line. The U.S. population now actively disbelieves our government since they willfully destroyed millions of businesses and repeatedly lied to us, the people with a capital P. But think about this. Are they going to humble themselves? No. Why? Because Biden is proud and he's got this great big group of people behind him. Far left is secretly running the country and they're so thrilled. They're beyond thrilled. If the government could set aside ineffective mask mandates, we've already been told they really don't work, and counterproductive shutdowns that kill more people through mental health issues and drug addictions and suicides than they save by keeping people from getting affected. Now, at the same time, if we can stop the border hemorrhaging illegals, then the government might regain some modicum of trust, some little bit of trust. But the government's trying to rape and plunder us into socialism. How do I prove that? Well, you know all the stuff that's happened out there. But Biden is now trying to get attorneys for all the millions of illegals. Can you imagine what a mess that would make? While illegally reinstituting the COVID foreclosure bans, the federal government told them not to close down foreclosure laws anymore because of the people who, in the COVID era couldn't work and make money, supposedly. Well, the government just decided to redo it, and so it's being the foreclosures are being shut down again. It's just terrible. Here's an article in Forbes. So let it be written, so let it be done. Government takeover of housing is here, and that's more socialism. Now, never let a circus go to waste. The simple fact is the history of Marxist socialism has been what Rahm Emanuel called never let a crisis go to waste, as you recall when he told that to Obama, and Obama was shaking his head and writing everything down. It's happening again, my friends. So we have to study Marxist history and learn the tactics and prepare to fight against them at every turn. And have you noticed? Of course you have. Every important institution in America is now riddled with socialists, with the woke, with the Black Lives Matter, with the social justice warriors, and even private corporations and the acting community. They're all social justice warriors. Universities are just drowning under these people. It's everywhere. The military now. We've got to stand up and fight against these people. So we must battle to save our great country, and to be continued. We got to keep fighting and talking about this. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and really enjoyed spending time with you. Please sign up as a subscriber and give me a thumbs up on the article or on the webcast on YouTube, and this story is going to be published in Canada Free Press tomorrow. So here's the story. Danish priest, and this is from New York Post, Danish priest admits killing wife, dissolving body in acid. I've been a total thug. Now, he was a little village priest, a Lutheran priest in Denmark. He's been sentenced to 15 years for killing his wife. He got the idea for how to do it from Breaking Bad, believe it or not. Thomas Gothard, 44, admitted behind closed doors that he had killed his wife, Maria Fromm Jacobson. During an argument, he hit her over the head with a rock. And the argument was over a new lady he was wildly in love with. He says, and I quote, "I killed Martha. I ended her life. She did not deserve the fate. I am guilty of having lied and deceived you all. I've been a total thug. I've sent my life out into the darkness where I want to stay. No one should feel sorry for me." So, of course, he claimed he was innocent, but they found that he had taken his wife and put her in a 54-gallon feed barrel and poured acid into it to eat her up. 12 gallons of hydrochloric acid and 13 pounds of caustic soda to dissolve her corpse. So at that point, the barrel was too heavy to move. And so then he took what was left of her and cut it into two smaller barrels, which he buried and later pulled out of the ground to cut up the remaining parts. Then he burned and buried the remaining bones. And the prosecutor said, and Meat Syrup said, she must love pancakes, Miss Syrup, this is not an unhappy love story about a man who could not get the love of his life, or the third love of his life. On the contrary, this is the man who saw his wife as a block and chain around his leg. So he had been divorced, he got remarried, he killed his wife, and then he was with a third woman. So, anyway, he's been suspended. You'll be happy to find out he's been suspended as his role as a parish priest. And investigators in April found hydrochloric acid and caustic soda in the home of he and his wife, which was stupid. And then they looked at his internet searches, and he had looked up terms like deep sea depth, oil barrels, suicide, and cleaning. And believe it or not, even though it was premeditated murder, it was only a 15-year maximum sentence, so I would assume it was murder too. And of course, the only thing he regretted ultimately was that he was caught. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, Kelly O'Connell. Let's fight against these scumbags that are taking over our country. Just because there's a virus doesn't mean that we have to give in and that we have to give up and that the government then becomes our God and makes all our decisions for us. It's really awful. It's really disgusting, and we don't have to accept it. Let's fight back. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Ciao.